Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another movie spoiler review for the theme of Thanksgiving. We'll do another family center film. We'll do it back to back. The Incredibles and Incredibles 2. Easily one of the best Pixar movies of all time. Honestly, everybody loves The Incredibles. The cast is just fantastic. uh uh Mrs. Parr, definitely the iconic MILF that she is. Yeah, as I get into it, I'm not gonna overlook and just gonna cut to the chase. There is intrinsically a Fantastic Four element to these characters. Now, I am personally against the whole, you know, general public calling this like the better Fantastic Four. And it's like, yeah, you may not. Well, I think probably now people look back on the first two Tim Story Fantastic Four films in the early 2000s, look on it in better understanding, given how superhero films are looked upon over time, and there's resurgence with certain characters that at the time was not, seen in a good light. The same way with like, Hayden Christensen is now getting like a total like love right now after he just got just trashed in the early 2000s playing Anakin Skywalker. Now looking back, knowing what we know, we look on him as like, okay, he actually did like a very good job, and we were unjustly, not me, I actually liked him from the jump, but so many people at the time were unjustly crapping on him. But knowing that George Lucas, some of the writing was not good, and as great as all those actors are, we've seen them in many stuff. Not even Sam Jackson couldn't make most of that material work. But I already did my reviews on all the Star Wars films, so you can check those out. But now we was like, okay, we got a better appreciation. So what I'm trying to get to is that the Fantastic Four is Marvel's first family for a reason. They have, honestly, the most well-known comic book marriages of all time, and I at the eventually, because I think they just announced Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards for the MCU. Now, I initially thought of making like a discussion video about that to get in depth with it, because it literally was just announced. And it's like, I love Pedro Pascal. I don't think anybody hates Pedro Pascal. He's always do top-notch work, everything he does. But it's just that, I like John Krasinski. I haven't been like much of an Office guy, seeing clips and stuff, and he seems like a generally good actor. He's very charming, very likable, and from what I've saw from his small performance as Mr. Fantastic, which I think people more so generally, not generally against it, but just against the fact that it was fan casting, and Kevin Feige just threw that in to appease like the fans because they kept crying for it, and most people, it's like, no shade on Krasinski, but it's just like, don't kowtow to the fans because they more times than not don't know what they're talking about. But I think like, oh, John knocked that out of the park from that small bit, because like, he just, and his likability makes the character likable, because most times in the comics, certain writers make Reed kind of like a, not in a jerk in a traditional sense, but more so like absent-minded to, in a way, because he's so smart, it come across as jerky even though he's not trying to be. And the Reed Richards should be like in general, a good family man. That legit loves his wife and his kids and his friend and brother-in-law. But my and many other people's issue with this, casting is this: Pedro Pascal is way too big, and it's like they need to stop casting all these A-list actors to get butts in seats instead of just get no names or relatively no names, so that way we can just focus on the characters themselves. They did that plenty of times with every guy who ever played Superman in live action. I have never known about Dean Cain, Tom Welling, Henry Cavill, even this, Cornsweet guy, was the guy from Superman Lois. I'm blanking on his name, but that guy, even Christopher Reeve, I never known them before they played Superman, but as soon as they play Superman, like right after that, it's like they become household names because you see like Superman every time you see any one of those actors. Brandon Rao, it's like they're just Superman now because that catapulted them to stardom. And it's just like Pedro Pascal. And it's like, and you expect them to be like, Reed Richards for a good 10, 12 years. And, the guy should be in the late 30s at this point. Sure, you might, push it into his 50s, but it's just like, by the time, these actors get into like the mid 40s, they want to be out, just out at a certain point. And you want to cast like younger actors who can play this for 10 years and won't be, crying, like, let's use a stunt double, my bones ache kind of thing. It's, you want that to be pushed as far in the future as possible. And I don't know. It's just, you gotta, I mean, Ian Gifford, who played Mr. Fantastic in the first Fantastic Four movie, I never knew him before he played Mr. Fantastic. So that's the first time I've ever seen that actor before. Same thing with Michael Chiklis, who played Ben Grimm. Now, I knew Jessica Alba and Chris Evans. I've seen them before and other stuff, but it's not as big of a deal because they were still relatively young A-listers, or just at that like coming peak in A-lister stardom. But the casting wasn't generally like a terrible idea. But if you just constantly, just like with the Super Mario movie, most of those actors are A-list actors, and it just got to a point where it's like, okay, you need to dial it back a bit and just trust your material. What it telegraphs people that you don't trust your material on its own, so you need to make sure you guarantee people to get in those box office revenue and guarantee butts and seats. You need to get people who knows these guys' names, and it's just it bugs me. But I'm saying all that to say this, like I would like to see an MCU Fantastic Four movie where they have the Incredibles play on TV, and like Sue comes in and shuts it off and like, get this crap off my TV kind of stuff, just like poking fun at all those people who crapped on Fantastic Four, which is like Marvel's first family and like a pillar to the Marvel's comic universe. And it's like, getting crapped on because the Incredibles did so well and they pretty much mimic them. And it's like, you can, if you want a good Fantastic Four, and if you're crying like there hasn't been any good Fantastic Four stuff, that's why we love the Incredibles, because they've done it right. Well, there is a TV show they made in the early or like mid 2000s. It had like one season apparently, but I don't know what's up with that. It was really good, and I did a review on it. It's one of my first TV show reviews that I did on the channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. The Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes. It's on Disney Plus. And check that out. And you watch that, you'll see that these guys are fantastic, fun, charming individuals. Reed isn't like a jerk. He's likable. He's a family man, but he just like a scientist. And these are explorers. And Sue is a scientist. Sometimes people tend to forget that she's a scientist in her own right. Johnny Storm is like a very young brass jokester. And yet the lovable blue-eyed thing is a heart of gold and just a rocky exterior. And it's like, you watch that show, you'll understand where I'm coming from. And so like Incredibles are their own separate thing, and they, most of the, family members are just mimicking them. So part of me doesn't like that comparison. Just to prop one up, you got to put the other down, and it's not fair. Anyway, this movie was directed by Brad Bird and written by Brad Bird, who also voices Edna Mode, who is immediately a icon of her own right, even though it's voiced by a guy. Is a superhero fashion designer. Got Craig T. Nelson plays Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible, who has superhuman strength and endurance. Holly Hunter plays Helen Parr, Elastigirl, the internet's Step on Me Mommy Energy, which I should have put on my list of all those fictional characters who have Step on Me Mommy Energy, the Sami. Check out my discussion video describing what Sami is. Step on Me Mommy Energy. I coined it. That was my trademark. So give credit to credit is due. Who has the thick thighs and everything like that. So, and she has, elasticity powers. You got Sarah Vowell, who plays Violet Parr, who is a young teen who can turn invisible and generate force fields. Spencer Fox voices Dashiell Dash Parr, who has superhuman speed. You got, Ellie Facile and Maeve Andrews, I guess young kids or just people just doing baby noises, who plays Jack Parr, who demonstrates, just shape shifting, or just a wide range of abilities. They just pretty much an OP character, just like you just generate whatever superpower that they can imagine. You got Jason Lee as Syndrome, who's kind of like the Dr. Doom of this thing. Samuel Jackson as Lucius Best, aka Frozone, who has ice powers. Elizabeth Pena as Mirage. You might recognize her as that cop from the first Rush Hour movie, the female cop that always argues with Chris Tucker's character. And Bud Lucky as Rick Dicker, as the government agent responsible for keeping the Parrs undercover. This movie raked just crazy much, like darn near $1 billion in the box office worldwide, $631.6 million. That's insane, with just a budget between like 92 to 145 million, which seems fair. But before you get into the story, I want to get into, which I'll get into here because it kind of coincides with the sequel as well, that the world building and stuff is fantastic, because it kind of reminds you of those Fleischer Superman films from the 60s, the animated show from the 60s, and just kind of Metro City is just like a retro style. It's kind of something that you see from the Batman animated series show, where the certain aesthetic of the buildings and trains is very like what people during the 60s thought the future might be. Very Rocketeer vibes. It's very dope. But of course, they also kind of like the Archer TV show, where it kind of has like a blend of like 60 style spy with current technology like smartphones. They kind of do the same thing with the Incredibles films, where they got a good mix between like 60s style kind of stuff with current technology like iPads. Same thing with like the Batman anime series. Now I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, they got these computers, but most of the stuff got like cars that look like something from the 60s, which I don't mind that kind of mashup, because it's like you can let certain things slide because it's just easier, whereas like they can just have computers that can give them certain information like like a snap, because rather than doing it like the old-fashioned way and try to work around all that, and I can understand it's probably a bit of a headache. It's just like, no, they can just pull up on the iPad and get certain things done. It's fine. I'm gonna go through the story first and go through each of the characters' dynamics. And I'll probably have to do the same thing again because I go through a different arcs in the sequel, which is stunning in and of itself. There's like barely any kind of repeats of what transpired previously, except for maybe one thing. So anyway, begin the movie where the supers, kind of like My Hero Academia a bit, where these superheroes are like famous, and they get love and admiration. They go on like TV spots on like news reporter news interviews and stuff like that, and talk about their superhero lives. Of course, they don't know, they ain't giving out their secret identities or anything like that. And it's like, oh, they love us. It's like, they want to like, like, I don't want to know your secret identity. They think it's going to be like a turn on or whatever. And this running commentary about how like, villains always monologue, very like, play on that trope where it's like, villains constantly monologue, and like, Syndrome pointed it out like, oh, you got me monologuing. And there's a lot of quotes from the Incredibles films, more so the first film than the second, I think. But then Frozone tells the story to like an old story, like a war story, to his friend Bob, where it's like, you know what he does? He starts monologuing. He starts monologuing, telling like how feeble I am, and it's like, you got me on the platter and you're doing that, and it's like they cannot help themselves. And you notice a lot. I don't know if after the movie, in comic books, there was less or more, because they lean into the joke of villains doing their monologue, but it's kind of part of the narrative. They kind of have to do that. But there's more when they catch themselves, like Syndrome catches himself, and it's like, okay, no, we just get right into it, because it's like, okay, I don't want to fall in that trope, but yeah, it's kind of funny, where it's like writers can help but write that. Instead of, it's very rare you'll see like, except for something like what's that movie they also had Sam Jackson in, that spy movie, that was a Kingsman, the first one, where he just shoots one of the main character, Sam Jackson's villain, just shoots the main character. He doesn't go into those kind of monologuing things. It's like, okay, I'll just shoot him, boom. Of course, spoiler alert, by the way, on this, and the sequel, he comes back, he's got like an eye injury when he should be freaking dead. But it's just like, it's one of those one rare occurrence where they like undercut that whole trope, where it's like, I'm not gonna sit there and go on this diatribe. I'm just gonna, I got you dead to rights. I'm gonna shoot you. Boom, done. Get out. So, it's like, and I love where you already understand before we even see the scene that Bob, who bumps into Elastigirl, who they both get to a burglar that's trying to break into a building, and they got this playful banter going on, and you immediately, it's kind of like you kind of got spoiled in like trailers and posters at the time, but you immediately understand, which is the marks of great writers, that you can lay out a scene where you can have the audience, who you're not playing as idiots, to spell it out for them that these two, given from the dialogue, have a romantic, thing between each other. We don't know how serious. We know it's probably serious, or at the very least getting serious, but not until the wedding scene we know, like, oh no, they like already tying the knot at this point. But I'm glad that we know that these two are obviously in a serious relationship. But then I love, like, the Incredible car, or the Incredicar, where it's like, looks like a normal car, but you're on the street and he's transforming into your Credimobile. I think it's a Credimobile, and it's like everybody can see you. It's not like your windows are dark, and that'll be a different story. But what about your license plate? Nobody's, eyeing that. And maybe you can make the argument that nobody can see that going at a certain speed. But it's just like, your regular car should be different from your superhero vehicle. But you're doing this whole like transformation, and there's gauntlets that's like comes down and wraps his bands around his wrist. It's like, you got a thin layer up there. It's not like it's bulky at the top, but you got a thin layer up there. Like, where is that coming from? I'm nitpicking at that point, but I'm just saying, I know it's like, where is that coming from? But it's, they racing down because he's getting like calls about, like, a cat stuck in a tree, and of course, it's typical superhero stuff, is rescuing a cat from a tree. Instead of climbing on the tree and getting the cat, he takes the entire tree out of the ground and tries to shake the cat free for the old lady, while also he's trying to get towards this car chase from these robbers being chased by the cops. And he finally shakes the cat loose and then takes the tree and slams it. Luckily, he's going that direction, slams it right into the opposite side of the street, stopping the chase. But then there was a jumper. He's got a, like, you get like dispatch mentioned about a jumper, and he's on the opposite building, seeing this guy about to jump, and he jumps, and then Bob runs, catches him, and dives into a window in the building. And ironically, ironically, there's another theft in progress from a supervillain, and ironically, it's happened to be on the same floor he just happens to jump into. That's so coincidental. But there's even before we get into that, I want to mention about the introduction of Syndrome as a kid named Buddy, who is like, I'm your biggest fan. He kind of reminds me of Batmite, if you remember him from DC Comics. He showed up in like Batman Brave and the Bold. I was like, I'm your biggest fan. And it's like, I'm Incrediboy. And it's like, I don't have any superpowers, but I invent all these like gadgets and stuff like that. And it's like, Bob is like, very gracious, because he points out, like, listen, buddy, like, I met you at that conference, like, I signed every piece of paper as you push it in front of me. I took all those many pictures as you wanted to, but this is getting ridiculous now. I don't want those, sidekick. I'm not putting you in harm's way. Go home, buddy. And so this boy just shows up wearing like these thrust boots things he invented right at the time when Bob is dealing with Bon Voyage, which he never freaking caught, mind you. And I don't know what happened to these super villains, but we'll get into that in a minute. And so you got Bon Voyage dead to rights, and like his buddy's trying to run off to try to get like cops assistance. Bon Voyage planted like a small explosive device on his little cape, and Bob has to go chase after this kid before he flies off, and try to get this like bomb off him, and it lands on the train tracks, goes off, and Bob has to stop this train from colliding off and causing like a massacre. So Bob had to explain to the cops that this kid, caused this supervillain to escape. So let him know what his mother's been. Let his mother know what he's been up to. And I gotta go. I'm already running late. And then he goes to catch up to his wedding, which he's in his tux, and Frozone is his best man. He is in his tux, and it's like you got a handful of superheroes wearing their superhero costumes, and it's like you imagine people there is like friends and family who knows them who they are anyway. Why do you feel the need to get them all in costume? And well, the priest is a priest. Is the priest a super? Does he know who they are? Or if he's not, it's like he's a friend of the family, because like it's cool to just have a bunch of people who know who they are. But it's like why is it like the entire thing so small? And it's like, sure, you might not have been friends with a bunch of superheroes, but it's like, where's all Bob's family, extended family, and where's all of Helen's extended family? You never get any kind of hinting about any one of their parents, or any probably siblings or cousins or nothing like that. It's kind of weird. It's so small. It's just like one section, one small section. But then they tied a knot, but then quick cut to Bob and a bunch of supers getting sued because the Jumper sued Bob because he mentions like he feels something getting broken as soon as Bob saved him, and it's like he in like a neck brace. And then commuters on that train that he saved also have like a bunch of neck braces and stuff like that, which I call cap on that. And now, as like a domino effect, every superhero is getting called out on about like collateral damage and stuff like that. And it's like certain cities can't afford to have supers just ground saving people without thought to like the damages they cause. And in lieu of being liable for damages or injuries, they just they being told like, hey, look, don't do any more active superheroing, and just live as a civilian and let it be that, and we won't hold you responsible for this kind of stuff with lawsuits and what have you. I really want to talk about this part more vehemently, because I looked online from legal experts who talked about this kind of scene, and these people suing these superheroes ain't got a real case, because like Mr. Incredible saving that Jumper it's like if there was no other recourse, a safer recourse, then because then Bob has every right to do what he did in order to save this man's life. Because if because imagine if every cop who manages to save a jumper can say like, you didn't save my life, you ruined my death. It will cause like a domino effect of if every jumper can just sue somebody from trying to save them when they just wanted to end themselves. And it's like, then it's like it caused a mass wide of those attempts. And it's like, yeah, you can't sue anybody for that. You don't have no case. And so far as like those train commuters, and it's like, sure, if Bob had a like other options in order to stop that train from colliding or going overboard, then you might have a case with that. But many other experts who looked at this thing pointed out, well, it's like it's a very imminent thing that he had to make a split snap decision on, and given his power set, he had to do what he had to do in order to stop a mass wide destruction and death. So they don't have really much of a case, because a bomb went off, and the train's about to go over, he had to stop it. It's the same way trying to have those commuters on Spider-Man 2 sue Spider-Man for slowing down the train from going over. It's the exact same kind of scenario. It's ridiculous and have no case. Now there's other news clippings that point out like, oh, there's like a superhero with X-ray vision peeping on people. Sure, you might have a case on that dude because he's being a creep, but that's also under the assumption that he has full control over that power. And it's hard to, depending on how active he is as a superhero, you can make the argument, okay, he's been active for a few years. You can lay the claim, okay, you probably know how to control your power. So yeah, you're being a creep and you should get sued for that, because you can just peer in anybody's room and spy on them. But if he's probably like not active super and his powers are emerging or something like that, or maybe it's his first couple of months as a superhero, maybe, then you can probably make the argument it's like, I don't have like total control over that power just yet. So then he probably had to wear some kind of special kind of eyewear like Cyclops on the X-Men, to where he is like, he can properly manage his X-ray vision. But then it just caused like other superheroes, from this newspaper clippings are getting like sued left and right, because like, oh, it's collateral damage. They don't, it's like, and other people like claiming injury because these superheroes saved them. But then like, it's like you're running rampant. Most of these are probably like no-win cases for these civilians. It's hogwash. And so now I just want to point out that legitimately in real life, they wouldn't have any case, because superheroes more often than not have to make split snap decisions. Sure, there might be a few moments here and there where they're gonna be held liable against certain things if they had the an alternative where they can assess the situation. But if it's like a split snap decision where like a couple of buildings might get like crumble, not like in a devastating way, but it's like it's like to avoid death, and if a couple of buildings have to suffer, or a train track has to suffer in order to avoid human casualties, then I think it's kind of like so be it. It's like because the alternative isn't good. So now the supers have to go into hiding, which uh I don't know, it was like at least 20 years later, possibly. Bob's living like a mundane life as like was it an insurance claimer or something like that? What is it? Uh, Claims adjuster. Uh, and Helen's like a stay-at-home mom, and they got like 3 children. And it's kind of weird that none of their children who have superpowers, they don't know Jack has his powers yet until the sequel, but none of those kids who have a dad who has super strength and a mom who has elasticity, they don't have one of them doesn't have also super strength added on to their own unique thing, uh or their own elasticity with their own unique thing, or just a combination of the two. It's kind of weird given how genetics work, because I look exactly like my father, and many people make a joke about how like it looks like he only birthed me himself, like my mom didn't seem like she had anything to do with it. So it's just like you gotta like do something with that. It was probably like my minor criticism that I think people often point out. It's like, why isn't nobody has like super strength or electricity like the parents? It's kind of like, unless like if you show the grandparents, if one of them showed like a minor thing of super speed or invisibility, you can make the claim. Matter of fact, I don't know why Violet has kind of like violet hair or just raven hair, where neither one of the parents has the same colored hair. And maybe you can attribute that to her power, because it got kind of like a purplish hue to it. But it's kind of like a little iffy. And I was like, I don't know, Bob, you probably have to ask Helen, like, why has my daughter got like black hair? Nobody in my family got black hair, and I kind of wish we would have seen their parents to see if one of them have same color hair as Violet, so it can like, oh, it might have skipped a generation, and so that's why Violet has raven hair, so that way you can not look too hard on that. But anyway, so they're living like a mundane life. uh uh Bob's dealing with like a cranky old boss who only cares about the bottom line. He's like working a cubicle, and he's trying to still want to do good. He still has to scratch that kind of itch, because he's been like a superhero for such a long time, where it's like, I gotta help people. It's kind of like with Spider-Man, where it's like, even though he's trying to like when he's trying to do like a normal life thing, it's still like in the first Spider-Man movie, where it's like, even though he it was the second Spider-Man movie, even though he's doesn't seem like his powers, he got like a mental block kind of thing, even though he doesn't have his powers, temporarily doesn't have it, he saw like a burning building, he still wanted to go in despite no powers. He wanted to go in and save as many people he could, because it's that's part of him now. He's been active for so long, it's kind of like he needs to do that. He cannot be standing idly by. So Bob trying to do good in like small ways, where it's like this old lady who's like, and she's probably not the first, because Bob's pointing out about how many people come in with like a sob story. He secretly like tells them like, I can't tell you to go file form 323-46 and tell you about like this lady named Darlene, who's on the second floor, that can tell you to do this, so that way they can like gain the system, so that way they won't get put out on the street or get put in like soul crushing debt. And so he gets chewed out over that. And I love like the animation's amazing, where like Bob just looks, his face just looks defeated. He's not even like hearing, not really, really hearing his boss, because he's just like just loud, obnoxious, short Napoleon complex dude who's talking hella crap, even though that is like something a boss should not do. uh and putting his hands on was like, look at me, Bob, look at me. And it's like, no, Bob can easily sue this dude for grabbing him the way he's doing it and talking the way he's doing. And like, I'm pretty sure that's HR or whoever that can like claim like, he's like talking all kind of rank to me that's kind of out of bounds. But he's not trying to rock the boat, I guess, because he's living like a undercover life, or at least trying to live in like a normal life without anybody looking too hard in his direction. Even though he's gained a few pounds, but he still kind of got a Mr. Incredible look to him. Then Helen goes to the school. She had called by the principal because Dash is in trouble yet again. When like one of the teachers, it's still a funny moment where he had like a secret camera, even though he shouldn't be secretly filming anybody is against the law, especially inside of a school. Well, even though this day and age you can do that, but the teacher filmed where like he is adamant that Dash put a thumbtack on his chair right at the moment he's about to sit down, but he couldn't get caught because he was moving way too fast for the camera to pick up on. Helen knows, but the principal is not convinced because superheroes hasn't been like a thing for many years. So the idea that Dash somehow is capable of moving out of the seat so quickly and to put a mysterious thumbtack on the chair, even though you could probably lay a claim if you look at the seat and see there was no thumbtack, but then at the moment he sat down and there's one there, you can argue that something is amiss, but not enough to lay the blame at Dash. So like you have to let the kid go, because and I love this look is slightly like a split second thing where it's like you can see on his smug little face he did it, and Dash just like gotcha. It's like I love the look of Dash. Dash is like, his facial expressions is amazing. And it's like Bernie, don't Bernie me. He did it. He did it. I swear he did it. It's like, God, that still kills me to this day, man. That was so funny. But then Dash, I love like the parenting between like Bob and Helen is great parenting. Probably one of the best parents in movie history, honestly. Where and like pretty real to a certain extent. Where like she's having, or at least ideal wise is kind of real. Is real to a certain extent, but like idealized, most parents wouldn't like spend time like talking, in a certain way to the kid, like Dash, we gotta find you a better outlet, hun. And even though like most moms will probably be chewing the kid out, but I was like, Dash, what I tell you about doing that stuff is you can't. But this is like ideal wise, well, mothers should probably talk about, but I don't know how often moms talk more soothingly like this, or not many. But anyway, she is expressed to Dash like, we gotta find you an outlet, kid. But Dash points out, it's like, I I want to go out for sports, but you and Dad won't let me. And she explains that why we can't, because and then this nice seated thing here where Syndrome would say later, can't remember verbatim, but it's kind of akin to like with anybody super knowing this, when she points out that you're not like everybody else, and Dash points out, if I was like everybody else, then I'm not I'm not special. something like that, where it's kind of like a flip to what Syndrome says, like it's everybody's stupid then nobody is, and everybody's normal then nobody is, or something like that. You know, it's like that line dialogue kind of really stood out for me for the first time. I watched this like at least a handful of times over the years, and this is to point out, you know, this is the first time that kind of stood out to me, at least I think. And Violet is uh uh a great character here in her own right. I was gonna bring this up in like each of the family members breakdown by the end of the video, but Violet here, I love the artistic choice because she's bashful, she's not sure of herself, and she likes this popular kid, but she's too shy to, or doesn't have the confidence to go up and talk to him. So she often hides behind corners, given the fact that she, you know, coincidentally has invisibility power. She often just, you know, it just acts when she just doesn't want to be seen because she's so bashful. And you can see it even by the hair choice, where it's like not just the color, but just like the fact that her hair is always like, you know, in front of one eye, or just you can barely see her entire face. And she has a very beautiful face, but she hides it. She doesn't really have the confidence publicly. But when she's at her family, she's a little bit, I want to say like so assertive, but she can actually take the moment to voice what she wants to say. Even though she's a teenager, sometimes she just doesn't want to, you know, admit to, because it's kind of embarrassing that she liked the boy. She doesn't want to say that she likes the kind of kid. She's still, you know, reaching that kind of awkward teenage age. But I like that choice where it's like, oh, she's bashful, and it's like you can see it before you can, before it's telegraphed to you, where it's like, you know, she is covered. She always has a face cover. She's bashful. So once she gets out of that, thanks to the whole superhero thing, it gives her more confidence. It gives her a confidence boost. It's kind of like where, like Peter Parker, where he was like a nerdy kid who, not that assertive and, you know, not that outgoing, but like being Spider-Man, he's a lot more, you know, jovial, jokey, and it later on in his life gives him more of like a confidence boost, and it gives him the more like, you know, like chance to be a little bit more outgoing. So and I love the whole, like, you know, brother and sister dynamic is where it's like you know, Helen points out like, honey, what's wrong? You hardly touched your food. I'm not hungry. And then dad's just like right on cue, just the toy mess with her. It's like, you know, I bet you're hungry for Tony Ridinger. Like, shut up, you little creep. Well, she is. And so it's just like the family, just like, it's just like no family's perfect. They have like arguments and fights, and it's dysfunctional. Add to superpowers, it's adds to the hilarity. And of course, I mean, it's like it's just like a total dad thing to do when it's like when Helen says, you know, something, it's like, Bob, like, you know, you talk to your kids, and then you hear just the Bob is like, kids, listen to your mother. It's just like, yeah, thanks for the effort, honey. it's just so easy to say. Like, I imagine myself doing that, you know, whenever I get married. I can probably imagine myself just doing that, because like, you know, your mother got this. It's like, you know, just listen to your mother. Yeah, that was just really funny. But then like Frozone shows up to go out for that bowling nights, but that, you know, him and Bob really are secretly vigilanting, listen to police scanners and try to secretly save people because he's, he like I say, he wants to scratch that itch. He needs to do this stuff. He wants to, feel important again because, like, being a superhero was such a big part of his life that he just doesn't want to quit that. And like, he always wanted to help people. And so him and Frozone being monitored by this mysterious woman, ironically named Mirage. It's all about, like, even has a business card that has like a holographic foil where it's like, you see it then you don't see it kind of thing. I like that touch. And they go to a burning building to save a bunch of people. And I love this, like, these banter. You tell these guys are best friends. They can, like, chew each other out when, like, but they're not like hating each other kind of thing. It's kind of like how dudes talk with each other. Where it's like, I thought you're getting, like, suck the moisture out of the air. Why are you getting make more ice? Like, there is no moisture in the air. What's wrong with you? You run out of muscle? Well, it's like, like the structural damage. I won't, I can't just, bust through randomly because it's gonna cause structural damage. Which I like that line dialogue because you can tell they've been at this game for so long. They know how their powers work and like what their limits are. I like that line dialogue. I don't think many people pointed out. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like trial and error in a young. It's like if you watch My Hero Academia or like something like Naruto, it's like, or even like like Batman Year One, the animated movie and the comic, where like like Batman, like his first night out and he stops some thieves from stealing like electronics out of an apartment, and he stopped them, but was kind of clumsily and pretty much like just luck. He wasn't assessing the situation kind of thing, and he bundled his way into a victory in that moment, but it was it was sloppy. It's like I imagine like Frozone and Bob had those kind of moments where it's like, you got super strength, I'll just charge on in and like count on my strength to do it. But it's like, no, I can't just randomly bust through stuff. I will cause significant more damage than it already would have been. I need to be smart about how I use my strength here. So I like that. It was very well put. At least it's how I interpret it. And it's like that good line dialogue, mark for great writers. Pay your writers, people, a fair wage. Because more often than not, they churn out quality like this. So Bob assesses the situation. He knows, okay, I gotta go through here. It's gonna come down, but we need to get out of here safely with these people. So they go through a building next door, which turns out to be a jewelry store that's closed, and like they chip the alarm system. And because they're wearing masks trying to be incognito, and like Frozone pointed out, like, we look like bad guys. And of course, one of the cops comes in. Don't know why it's only one cop showing up, and it's literally right feet from them as the building is burning. One cop show in, he's nervously, and it's like, God, this cops is with a itchy trigger, not itchy trigger for him, but it's like so nervous. It's like you shouldn't be a cop if you're too nervous and your hand shaking, and it's like it's like it's like, dude, this is your first day of a job or something. Like, you shouldn't be, your hands should be so shaky like that. So Frozone gets a sip of water to like replenish the moisture and everything like that, so he can start using his cold powers. He frees the dude before the bullet really went off. It was literally like just escaped the barrel of the gun. And so they managed to make their escape. Then Bob at work notices, like, right outside his boss's window, there's somebody getting jumped on and mugged, and he wants to step out and go do something. He sees, and he's pointing out to his boss, and the boss so callously is like, I hope he has insurance then. And so the criminal managed to get away, and this was the last straw for Bob, because it's like I should not be in hiding. I want to help people. Being like, you know, put in like a box. He's literally in a cubicle. He's put into a box. He wants to free to be himself. It's like I shouldn't be in hiding. And it's like you can imagine many people who are in the LGBTQ plus community can understand this from that perspective, where it's like I should not be ashamed to be myself. Like, I want to be a superhero. I have powers. I have a responsibility to the community. I want to help people. I should not be punished for that. I should not be shamed or punished for that. And so this was the straw that broke the camel's back for him. So out of anger, which is still wrong, but it's just out of anger, he just kind of like, chokes out his boss and tosses him through a series of walls until he slams into like a bunch of lockers or something. And it's like, well, he's in like a full body cast, but it's like nobody questions the fact that this man managed to, maybe you can make an excuse, he threw him so hard he went through a wall, but a series of walls, nobody bothered to question. But I imagine somebody did question. That's where like the agent guy, Rick, shows up. You talking about mind wipes and paying people off and stuff like that, but now we got to relocate you once again, even though we've been relocating you one too many times at this point. But maybe this is not the first incident or something where somebody either spotted them or saw one of the family members use like a power or something like that. So it's like, I gotta just find another job. I can't force my family to keep moving at this point. We just finally got settled in. So now, Bob is just and this is like, as he got home, he got busted by his wife Helen when she sees like, debris on his shoulder. And so these two have like an argument, which is, turns out, because of Violet, the kids are literally right there. I don't know why they out of the bed, but they heard them, like their shouting match. And I'm glad they kind of cooled that down when they realized, oh, we can't argue in front of the kids. Like, look, me and your mom are having a disagreement, but we still love you. We love each other. It's fine. But it's just like, these two, like, it's like not, I think Bob is a little bit more so in the wrong than Helen is, but because Bob is obviously keeping secrets from her, but he just doesn't want her to worry, because I imagine she has that same feeling, but she managed to be content with the fact that she could just raise these children. But Bob, he just wants to kind of relive those kind of glory days. But then Bob is like, gets like a secret iPad thing, detailing about, from Mirage, saying like, oh, we need your help, Mr. Incredible. It's like, we'll pay you handsomely. So Bob goes to this he puts on his old Incredible suit, even though he's kind of like got like a gut now, and so it doesn't quite fit him as well. It's not like he's morbidly obese. It's kind of like like a beer gut kind of situation. And so he gets on this private plane and takes him to this private island where he doesn't meet the mysterious benefactor, which we all know is Syndrome, but he meets Mirage, who explains to him that it's like a island that's near a volcano, where it's like you're a superhero long enough to tell like this guy might be a bad guy, because only bad guys set up like a private island. Not only is it a private island, but on top of that is near a volcano. And the fact that she says like, oh, he's attracted to power, And it's like, you can relate. And it's like, okay, clearly he's a bad guy. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Clearly he's a bad guy. The only bad guys do this. There's no good person who set up a, not only, it's one thing to have like a private island. You can probably make a case for that, but a private island near a volcano is very like suspect. And it's like, I'm shocked that he didn't bring that up. But anyway, she brings to his attention about this robot that they created, but it somehow became self-aware and it's become like a danger to people on the island. We need, your help to kind of put it down, but try not to completely destroy it, because we still want to be able to utilize it, but tweak some things so it won't run rampant again. So Mr. Incredible, goes out in the south of the southern border of the island where the thing was last seen. And so there's a cool, awesome fight where he's trying to take down this thing, but his, outer shell is like hard to penetrate. Don't know why, given the fact he's supposed to have some super strength. I don't know what's the upper limits of his super strength, because I see him knock down, a steel door. Sure, it's probably wasn't as thick, because it's like in that, in the sequel, that drill dozer guy and his like little thing is a door that he's trapped in that housed all that money he stole, and he burst that thing down. So it's been seen that he can knock down metal. What kind of metal this thing has on its outer casing that prevents him to just barrel through that thing? It's like I mean, you could make up some kind of fancy metal that could explain it, maybe, and then I can be able to buy it a little bit more than just oh, it's just got like a protective casing. How protective is it? Anyway, so Mr. Incredible managed to just like jump inside this thing and cause it to try to, because it learns, a learning kind of computer kind of situation. So the more if you fight with it, the more it, assesses the situation and manages to try to counter you. So he goes inside this thing and is trying to, get at him, but ends up breaking through its own casing, and that's how he stopped it. And now he's getting paid very handsomely. Now he's able to like take care of his family. He's starting to work out more. So, and spend more time with his, now he has more time spending with his family, like, throwing the ball with his son and stuff. And so now he got more life to him now, whereas like the cubicle thing, office job, was kind of soul sucking. Cause I love like the whole drabness to it. It's like the bit of diluted color to the animation when he's in that office space. And that was an incredible design choice to show that this is like a soul sucking job. He's not, is not something that he, cares to be in, but he kind of forced to be in. And you're forced to do something, you're not going to have a pleasant time. You're going to be mentally checked out. But you can make the argument, okay, like, sure, that I don't know how much he was gotten paid for that. I imagine it was very handsome, given the fact that he got a freaking island. So it should have been like enough to cover like expenditures for maybe like, if he like, smartly saved and put it away somewhere, but he managed to pay off, like, be able to pay off like the mortgages and other bills and stuff like that. So all that stuff is kind of taken care of, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So he kind of stalls the fact that, he doesn't have like a active job. But it's like, okay, it's mentioned in like a couple of months he was called again to help with another situation that will also he can get pretty much paid to be a superhero essentially. But what has he been telling Helen? Because yeah, sure, he probably can, like, most of the time he's probably going off to go exercise and pretend to go to work, but it's just that couldn't always been like explained away. he has to, like, there's gotta be like I don't know. It's just something that you can't help but think about. It's like, what have you been doing this whole time? Because it can all been just exercise. Helen has to call out. It's like, what's going on, and she eventually calls the office when she suspects of Bob of cheating, and it's like, you just now, because you saw like early in the film that she called the office to tell Bob that you're officially unpacked. You mean to tell me in this 2 months time she had no reason to call the office to tell Bob, like, about something going on that she needs to talk to him about, and they didn't relay the message to her, like, oh, his employment has been terminated for quite some time as Mrs. Parr. And it's like, you just now calling? It's like, sure, like, I don't know. I've gotten calls from people while I'm at work plenty of times. Like, not my current job, but it's like my past job. These past couple of jobs have been times, not frequent, but it's just like, it's been an occasion where it's been like somebody called for some kind of, well, we got cell phones now. They don't really need to call the office to reach certain people, but you catch my drift. It's not many times where like you get like phone calls from families, but there's 2 months time. There's got to be a point. But anyway, he goes to Edna to get like a new a patch-up job on his suit, because the robot kind of caused a cut on the sleeve, which lays the groundwork to Helen suspecting something's up, because the stitch pattern is relatively new. It's definitely new, not relatively. And so, like, oh, Edna knows something. So Edna designs the new Incredible suits, which, form-fitting, breathable, but also bulletproof, fireproof, but also, for, aside from Jack, because they don't know what Jack can do yet, each one is designed to handle, speed friction from dash, and be able to turn invisible as quickly as Violet, and et cetera, et cetera. But then as soon as Bob gets back to the island, he starts to suspect something, given the fact that this mysterious benefactor, he still doesn't see his face, but it's like, there's like a mysterious like gap in this lava fall, which I think is extremely dangerous. But he's sitting in his supposed conference room, and then another robot comes bursting in. He fights the thing, and he meets up with Syndrome, who turns out to be Buddy, who felt rejected by his childhood idol, and they kind of snap, essentially, because it's like I look up to you. I wanted to be your sidekick, but it's kind of like Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, where he idolized Barry Allen and he wanted to be a sidekick, but it didn't turn out that way. He kind of snapped, and besides, like, oh, I'll just be your greatest villain ever. Is all spiraled into a very existential thing where he's just like, he just wanted our reason to be with his hero, even if it meant being like a absolute petty dickish villain. So Syndrome essentially is that. So his plan is, because he is responsible for killing many supers that's been, like one of Bob's friends, Gazer Beam, has been missing for quite some time. And Syndrome sent Mirage to pick up various superheroes here and there over time to fight these robots that went out of control, but it was learning from them, testing them, trying to better this machine to uh fight against supers, and once it beats one, it goes pick up another, and they might beat one robot, but then Syndrome builds a better one to counteract what beat it the first time, and then kill that super, and then it just one by one supers are sort of like depleting. And so now Syndrome is like, I'm gonna, like, I'm an inventor now. I sold my, I invented weapons for people, for governments, and made me a pretty penny. So I'm going to invent like tools that make other people feel like superheroes. So because when everybody's super, nobody will be. And it's like, I'm going to be the only super. I'm going to go around, pretending to save the world and stuff like that. And when he gets older and he has fun, I'm going to sell my adventures. And so now, pretty much making like the superhero concept completely obsolete. So incredible, and of course the whole monologuing thing. You get that scene. Mr. Incredible briefly gets away by hiding behind the bones of Gazer Beam, who left a message, Chronos, which turns out to be Syndrome's password. So he starts infiltrating his lab in order to, and he finds out about what happened to all these supers. And Helen goes to Edna, and using like the suit tracker, and realize, oh, he's left on an island and everything like that. And I like the scene because it's like she crying in the kitchen, and of course Edna's just like kind of like done with it immediately. She's blubbering. It's like, oh my god, he's like, he's cheating on me. It's like I don't know what to do. And like, I love Edna just takes like a roll of newspaper and just bopping on her head. Like, I'm like, what is wrong with you? You are Elastigirl. Like, fuck up. I'm like, you're Elastigirl. You go out there, you go and do something. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, I'm glad it's not like pandering girl power moment immediately. She's taking a moment, because she's like, she just like any woman, it's like almost any woman. It's just like, I feel like I'm losing my husband. He's been lying to me. I think he's cheating. But it takes another one to like, put her like, in, certain things in perspective for her, calls her out on it, and just reminds her who she is. You are Elastigirl. You're not some blubbering, everyday girl. You put on your big girl pants, you go out there and you get your husband. And like, of course, she doubts that he's actually cheating. He's probably being like a superhero, but it's like more so the lying ain't, if anything. So she goes home, puts on the Incredible suit, tells Dash and Violet stay home, look after Jack. But of course, they ditched a baby with a babysitter and to sneak on board to follow her, because Violet is, more cognizant of what is going on with the parents. Well, I guess a little more empathetic and understand, like, oh, the marriage might be in trouble and things like that. She's, seeing like, not them just parents, but just like these people that's like having some issues and stuff like that. While Dash, a little bit more matter of factly, where it's like, oh, you think the bad guys are going after our parents' marriage? And it's like, it's like, okay, whatever. But Bob is, pretty much in like a suspended holding, prison, and he you know, Syndrome thinks like, oh, he's sounding like a homing beacon. He doesn't know anything about it. And then Helen sent a distress signal to the island, try to, you know, get some help. His kids on board, and of course Bob is freaked out. He sends out a missile to take it down. They managed to escape the, you know, situation thanks to the combination of Helen and Violet. Well, more so Helen, because Violet had like a you know, she's put on the spot, and she's kind of like a, you know, a performance issue right now because the thing's getting serious. She hasn't been trained in like for a situation like this. She's got put on the spot, so Helen had to come up with a way to, like, you know, save all of them. But Bob thinks like, oh my god, I just lost my freaking family. So he managed to use his strength long enough to grab on Mirage and threaten to break her in half if Syndrome don't release him. Syndrome calls him out on it because he knows like, oh, you're a hero. It's like, you're not gonna really do it. And of course, Bob knows he's not. You know, he's not in him to just kill people. But Mirage is like, not only distraught on two things. One, the fact that, oh, he, you know, sent out a missile to take out a plane that has kids on board, and also would not care the fact that if Bob would have like done what he, you know, actually would have done it, how little he would have cared. And of course, he tried to express to her like, you know, I wouldn't really, you know, he wasn't really gonna do it. I know him, but there's the callousness of it. But you, not too long ago, in a few scenes where you mentioned how you're attracted to power and everything like that, you know what kind of guy he is. He killed a bunch of supers. You didn't, like, you know, bat a freaking eye. I'm pretty sure most of them have children and stuff. You did not care. But it's just like, you know, of course, I guess on top of the fact that, you know, she's in danger and he did not care, I guess that kind of tripped her up. But it's like, but she was legit shocked that he would just let a plane full of children, you know, I don't know how many children. She doesn't know how many children, but she's just let it fly. It's just, maybe she rationalized, well, they're supers, they can handle themselves. If not, well, maybe, you know, it's just, you know, casualty kind of situation. But it's just like, I mean, her, you know, rationalizing, well, I won't say rationalizing, she didn't really telegraph it, but it's just the fact that she got the nerve to act shocked how evil this dude is. It's just like, girl, get a clue. Like you're in it at this point. After like a dozen supers, like, you're in this at this point. It's kind of like Kingpin's wife Vanessa in the Netflix show, where he's letting bombs go off in the middle of Hell's Kitchen, and she just like, you know, casually accepts it. And it's like, and she's, you know, in love with him and everything like that. And it's like, well, you're in this right now. You're just pretty much accepting. It's like, I don't know why. I'm pretty sure I want to eventually do a review of the each season of the Daredevil show. But it's just like, wow, you're just like cool with it. Essentially, I mean, cool with it, but you're just like, you're not gasping in terror or anything like that, or quickly calling the cops or anything like that. You know, would have been pointless. But it's just like, oh, you're just rolling with it. It's like, okay, and that's how I feel about Mirage. So you're just rolling with it at a certain point. After the third super, you're just with it. And it's kind of shocking she never got, like, there's never a hint that she get arrested or anything like that. You are responsible, partially responsible for the death of many people. Anyway, Helen and the kids are in this cave, and she instructs them that, you know, I need you to stay here, be safe. I gotta go and find your father. But I'm like this dialogue from her where, you know, so too many, you know, adults talk to kids like, you know, like they're kids, but they're not like kids. If they, because, you know, we're undermining them because their kids and not speaking to them like they're human beings and they can't rationalize. Where it's like, you just don't treat them. That's why I might complain about certain cartoons where it's like, growing up, there's certain cartoons that I watched that didn't treat kids like they're idiots, and we understood the concept of situations that could cause death. Like Batman animated series, you can say, yeah, as a kids show, but you dealing with people who would die and there's dangerous situations, and it's not like, hokey. uh uh Helen points out this, a situation, not like grossly harsh, but not kids gloves either. It's like, look, like, and he talks in a very soothing voice, like, hey, but talk to them like they, talk to them like they're adults, give them like some, bit of agency as people and not just her kids. Look, I'm gotta go save your father. Once you stay here, you'll be safe. Don't venture out, don't wander off or anything like that. But if things go down, Dash, why don't you run as fast as you can? As fast as I can, as fast as you can. But I gotta let you know, there's people out here, they don't, they will kill you. They don't have no qualms. They won't hold back or hesitate because you're children. They will kill you. So I need you to be safe. It's just like, give them the reassurance, but not sugarcoating the situation. Is like I said, like Bob and Helen's like probably like one of the best on-screen parents, is like at least top tier. In terms of how to handling a situation with their children. Then she goes out, do this cool, like use of her powers and sneaking in, like she's been doing it for a while. She's like riding a bike. She, it's like, okay, covert stuff. Even when Bob is trying to sneak in, he does it his own way, but still covertly. It's not just a battering ram with him. But I love, like, it's a funny moment where it's like, you can get a lot of mileage with Helen's powers, very almost slapsticky in a way, where it's like she's stretching and went in to try to sneak off a security guard's badge to scan through security doors, but her hips, or at least one of her leg, gets caught in one door. She stretches on the other end and gets caught, and it's like, and somebody poke her leg. It's like, what the, and she kicks the dude, and a gun fired off and hits the control panel, let loose her legs, hit some other dudes, and like kind of wish it was those dudes, because she get hit by those thick thighs of hers. And it's just like, it's a funny moment. Mirage released Bob, knowing that, okay, Syndrome's out of control. Oh, now he's out of control. But then Helen knocks her out, thinking like, oh, this is the flu that's stealing my husband. And then Bob is just so happy to see her. Thought she died. And then, and of course, they're running out trying to find their children, while they being chased by security guards, and you see like a wide use of their powers, and of course, and power combinations too. And it's like, you see, Dash is running like, like Flash is running across the water, and it's like cool animation, and outrunning all these guys. And then of course, and then you got Violet, who utilizing her invisibility very well, but then using a force field combination with a Jack, kind of like a hamster wheel situation, and sort of barreling down the pass, while all these guards getting killed left and right. And then it's like, these kids are racking up a body count at this point. And I mentioned earlier, like, oh well, like he won't kill people, but it's like, yeah, situations like this where it's like, yeah, you kind of are killing people, but it's more so self-defense if anything. But then they bump into the family, and get caught by Syndrome again, who put them in kind of like a stasis kind of bubble, and they get recaptured again. And Bob has like a moment where he's like apologizing because like he put himself before his family, and that wasn't right. It wasn't fair. Uh, uh, you should have looked at this life as like a new chapter instead of trying to reclaim the glory days. But thanks to Violet's power, she managed to kind of force field herself out of the situation. And so, they managed to get out, and thanks to Mirage giving them the passcode to get out of the building using an extra rocket, Syndrome is stopping this robot he sent to Metro City. Of course, the thing learned about his little gauntlets is controlling him because he's one by one trying to take off this thing's arms. But then the thing, shot off his gauntlet, so now like he can't control it, and he gets knocked out unconscious. And then of course you get like the whole Frozone, where's my super suit? And still you never see like what his wife looked like in either film. So the family managed to make it back to Metro City, and once again, like Bob kind of like backpedals a bit here, where he's trying to handle this stuff by himself, but he's not by himself anymore. He has a family, and he has kind of like a expression of emotion where he's just finally just letting it out. It's like, I can't lose you again. I'm not strong enough. And Helen, appropriately as his life mate, expresses to him like, as long as excuse me, as long as we're here with you, you don't have to be. And I like that moment when she's like assuring him that you don't always have to be the rock of the family. Let us take some of that load off. Because sometimes, guys put a lot of pressure on themselves because we're men. We have to be able to handle, quite a bit of pressure. But even we do have a limit, and that's where like your significant other, where it would be like wife, husband, or whatever, they come in to take some of that burden off, because you cannot do it always by yourself for a long period of time. You gotta release some of that pressure. So the family, along with Frozone, work together to get this gauntlet to try to disable this thing. And Bob, like the use of the powers and like combination, they playing pretty much hot potato with this freaking thing is very cool. Cool fight scene here. But Bob realized, look, there's no way to stop it except for itself. So using one of the disabled arms, he gets Helen to press a button to, light up his thrusters and line it up, and he sends the thing flying to take out the brain inside. And they're hailed as heroes and everything like that. But then you see in the sequel, they try to stop like another villain who's pretty much a rip-off Mole Man, because it's like the Fantastic Four like situation. But then they get like brought up by brought in by police officials, and I don't know why they never pop up here for this moment here. But so now they all let Dash try out for track, where he wanted to have an outlet. He wanted to be able to try out for stuff because he was a young kid, and young boys wants to express themselves. They want to be able to run and hit things, and you just got all that energy. They need to be able to have like a positive outlet to, you know, put that towards something. If not, they can put it towards something negative, which you do not want. But they have to, like, you know, and they you know, they give him a bit of a wide berth here, but they still trying to, like, you know, don't. It's kind of like with like John Kent, who's, you know, in Smallville, we're telling Clark, it's like, okay, well, let him try out for football. He wants to be a part of that because, you know, he's feels like he's too sheltered in a way. He's put in some kind of bubble because they're afraid if anybody finds out who he is, they'll take him away. They're trying to protect his kid, but he's hurting his kid by, you know, sheltering him too much. So you give him like a bigger berth. But unlike in The Incredibles, John gets mad when you feel like he sees, like, you know, Clark, you know, because of, you know, adrenaline and everything like that. He's not cognizant too much. It's not like he's like turned into a blur or anything like that, but he's like knowing that the other players won't be able to tackle him to the ground. He's, you know, invulnerability and strength and stuff like that. Whereas, like, of course, he's like, and his speed, you know, he's like, he's not going crazy fast, but he's, you know, the parents notice that he's like slightly faster than it should be, even above average, or at least feasible by normal standards, even by Olympian standards. That's slightly way too fast, but you're just kind of pretty close, and he gets chewed out about that. But here, Bob and Linda had to, like, you know, like, go fast, but like peel it back, just make it close, just make it close. And it's like, and confusing the other parents, like what the heck is going on with them? But then, of course, Daz gets second place, which is decent enough, so that way it won't rouse suspicion, kind of thing. But then you see Violet gets a moment where she's like, finally got the confidence in herself, where now she's like, because you see where Helen puts on her mask on the island, and she's like pulling her hair back and stuff like that, because, you know, she got a beautiful face, as they mentioned. Here she's like, you know, her hair back. She's being noticed by this guy, and she goes up to him and says, "Hi, I'm Violet Parr. You know, yeah, like, I noticed you. Do you want to go out to movies or something? Like, you know, go out to movies?" And she's like, "Yeah, you know, like, definitely." It's like, yeah, good on you, Violet. She's like, she got more confidence in herself, and, you know, and she's not, you know, insecure, you know, and she's proud of who she is, kind of situation. And she's a lot more closer to her family, whereas, like, it was like previously, you know, kind of dysfunctional to a certain extent. Knowing that her family is okay makes her feel okay in a sense. But then, like, the Underminers show up, and the movie ends with them preparing to, like, deal with this thing. Oh, and there's, you know, whole situation with Syndrome. He tries to kidnap Jack, but, and there was like a cool, like, you know, deleted scene where, like, the babysitter's having like a wild time with Jack because his, you know, power shape-shifting, you know, thing he does. I don't know how you label it, but it's just, you know, multiple powers, you know, adaptability thing is going crazy, and she doesn't know what's going on. And then, like, you know, Syndrome shows up, because she was like a funny little moment where it's like she's, you know, they're in a limo, and she's listening to all these voicemails from the babysitter, and it's all wild, and you see all that in this little short little clip. But you can look it up online. It's very funny. But and Syndrome just confused as hell. He's trying to make up a story to just convince the babysitter to get the baby off her hands, and he doesn't have to really do much part because she's completely out of her freaking mind at this point. And he's like, and she's like, "God, you know the baby's here. It's just like, and he's just like, what the hell just going on? Okay. But here he's flying away, trying to, like, I'm going to raise your kids my sidekick. And then he flies up, and because Edna sets it up early in the film about, like, no capes, because it has to happen again, caught on something. And she's not necessarily wrong, but you know, they got like Batman and Superman, two of the most iconic heroes who have capes. It's only very rare when that is used against them. It's not often, but as I went over with my Batman Failsafe arc, the comic arc, which you can see on my YouTube channel as well, when I go over a Batman Failsafe story, which I think is like one of the most awesome arcs of Batman to this day. It's one of my favorites that I've seen in recent years with Batman, where there's pretty much this robot that's programmed to annihilate Batman. You know, Batman's trying to grapple to safety. The robot grabs onto his cape and just Hulk slams him down back to the ground. So it's like, yeah, there's gonna be occasions maybe where the capes are probably not ideal. But you know, because Syndrome's so shocked about his baby shape shifting and everything like that, he drops him as and thanks to Bob and Helen utilize their powers to slingshot Helen to catch the baby, as Bob throws his car at Syndrome's jet, and because the collision causes like Syndrome's kid get caught on one of the rudders, he dies. And so yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. But the movie's all intents and purposes, that's where it ends. It's a very good movie to this day. I want to go over at least the family's little characters here, where like yeah, Bob, having an existential crisis, midlife crisis, where he's trying to relive the glory days, where he's just like not present for his family, but also the whole dynamic where it's like he doesn't want to accept the mundane life, where you could have just probably like found like a job that is like fulfilling. I mean, you're not a cop because you don't want to just because it's like his superpowers or anything like that. He doesn't want to get busted. But do something that will require him to feel like he's fulfilling that desire, even in his like day-to-day life. So they still kind of scratch that itch, while at the same time, it's kind of like with Matt Murdock Daredevil, where it's like by day he's a lawyer, he's still helping people on the ground level, but during night he's a superhero where like the law, some of the criminals try to slip through the cracks of the law. Daredevil handled that situation, so it's kind of like something Bob can do that will fulfill that, so he doesn't feel like he has to lie to his wife and family all the time. Helen, it's not much of a well, her arc is more so that like not so much sheltering her kids so much, allowing agency with their kids, where they can express themselves, give them free reign to express themselves. Sure, give them like a safety net or give them like a boundary, but give them that inch to free to be themselves, and do it without fear. Like allowing like Dash to be able to try out for stuff, so give them some kind of outlet so it doesn't come out in a negative way down the line. Violet, as I mentioned earlier, she now has more of confidence in herself, and Dash has an outlet to express himself, so that way he doesn't always feel like he's being held back. And by the way, I've been wanting to talk about this for a hot minute, but Dash, the design choice with his hair is kind of like Quicksilver in a way, where it's like it's kind of like wind's constantly pushing his hair this way, because he's fast. He's like kind of like his hair got stuck that way after a certain point, or he's just constantly just in motion. It just like it's very cool design choice. I want to bring that up. The way they do with like subtle things with the kids is like very well done. And of course, Jack Jack doesn't really have an eye; he's a baby. But I love the playground the animators have with Jack Jack in here and the sequel, as I'll mention in the next video. But yeah, and Syndrome is like one of those certain toxic fan boys and girls out there in the world, like a lot of situation with like Star Wars, where people went after the character, like the actor who played Rose, and like the black actress who played the third sister, and the Kenobi series. Certain people went after unjustly to the actors and everything like that. A lot of them are like Syndrome in a way, where it feels like they can just do what they want because they love, they feel like they're like the true fans or whatever like that. I want to be Mr. Incredible's sidekick and everything like that, like as I'm a true fan kind of situation. It's like and goes to Mr. Incredible, who's super gracious. Many actors are super gracious to their fans because it's because of them that they are they got as far as they did. Sure, they still have to do their hard work, but there's the appreciation and admiration that elevates them further. And Mr. Incredible said he signed every piece of paper that Buddy shoved in front of him, and he's very gracious about it. But now it's like Buddy's taking his fandom too far, and it's just like fandom left unchecked, like those crazy Rick and Morty fanboys and girls out there in the world, or just any toxic fandom in general. And that is Syndrome to a T. And it's like if Syndrome was here today, he would be one of those Twitter trolls out in the world. It's like fandom left unchecked, it will be Syndrome. And that ultimately is his downfall. That led to his downfall. Because he thinks that, oh, I'll make a better superhero because I follow superheroes constantly. It's like especially Mr. Incredible. It's like I know better. He doesn't walk the walk. He never had like a Uncle Ben with great power moment. But yeah, that was The Incredibles. Very, very good film. I'll see you guys in a few minutes as I'll talk about the sequel. And it's fun stuff here. But don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. If you're watching this on YouTube, follow me in the links in the description below. Let me know what you think of The Incredibles movie. And like, yeah, this movie in particular came out, when did this come out? 04, and 14 years later came out the sequel came out in 2018, and somehow it still managed to hold up despite like certain actor changes they do, because the kids who voiced Dash and Violet had grown up by that point, so you need to get like new voice actors to mimic the young kids. I think they did a pretty decent job, but we'll get into that. But yeah, and he still managed to pull off not many times. It's not many examples of movies to sequels to movies that when it came out a long time ago and they try to do a resurgence and it turns out well. I think the Blade Runner sequel is very well done. I think I might be in the minority in this. I went to see that in the theaters when it came out, way before I started, streaming video games or doing movie reviews or anything like that. I want to maybe, I have it on the list for next year for me doing reviews for Blade Runner and the sequel. And that, I think the sequel worked even despite the gap in time. I think that still worked I think Mixers 4 still worked to some extent, despite the whole pandemic situation. It still worked to a certain extent. I still enjoyed it. I think that would have been like a better sequel to the first movie than like 2 and 3 was. And I think, you know, Incredibles 2 worked. Despite the gap in such a gap in time. But and it's you know, superbly done with picking it up right as it left off. There's no missing a beat, and people's worried about that. I was like, okay, did you skip over the part at the tail end, or are you gonna pick it back up? No, like, he picked it right back up. It's like just straight up continuation. Anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes as I go over that. So I'll see y'all soon. In case you haven't know, I left out on my Twitter and my YouTube page about me doing a live stream of the Video Game Awards on December 7th, be around 6:30ish Central Time from my time, and we're gonna watch the live footage together if you want to join me for that. And then tomorrow I'll be doing going right after work. I'll be going right back into playing some Overwatch for a few hours, and then doing like a longer stream, possibly maybe an 8-hour stream on Thursday, Thanksgiving, probably like 2 to 10. So look forward to that. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Take care.